Imagine someone who is just, absolutely and undeniably all in.
Right.
Like, you have the exact feeling I'm talking about. The texting is nonstop, from the literal second you wake up to the moment you go to sleep.
Yeah, that constant stream of attention.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they're calling you special. They're looking at you like you are just the absolute center of the universe. And it feels incredible, right?
It does. It feels like magic.
Right. Like you have finally found it. You found that rare cinematic connection everyone is always talking about. But then suddenly they just go cold.
Completely cold.
Yeah, the replies just slow down to a trickle. The energy completely shifts. They act super distant, maybe even like you don't matter at all.
I think the last month didn't even happen.
Exactly. As if that intense connection never existed. And so what do? You sit there staring at your phone and you just think, if I just do everything right, maybe they'll come back.
If I can just fix whatever I messed up, right?
Yeah, you think maybe they'll go back to the way they were. You think you are deeply, passionately in love, and you're just weathering a tough storm. But here is the brutal paradigm shift we are exploring today. Neurologically, you are being trained.
Yeah, it is a profound and frankly a pretty unsettling realization.
Really unsettling.
Because when you are in the middle of it, you feel like you're caught up in this whirlwind romance. A tragic, beautiful love story with intense highs and agonizing lows.
You think it's passion?
Right, you think it's passion. But if we strip away the romantic narrative and we look strictly at the underlying behavioral mechanics, you aren't experiencing love.
Wow.
You are experiencing conditioning, the exact same fundamental behavioral conditioning that biologists observe in nature, but now it's playing out on your smartphone.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Because today, the mission of this deep dive is to go through a massive stack of psychological resources.
We have a lot of ground to cover.
We really do.
Mm.
We're looking at relationship counseling articles, neurological studies, just to uncover the hidden science of what is known in the field as push-pull dynamics.
Yes.
We are going to look at exactly how they work, why they literally mirror drug addiction in your brain, and most importantly, how you can actually break free from the loop.
And I think it is crucial to establish right from the start that we're not just talking about a bad relationship here,
Right.
or a string of unfortunate misunderstandings, or even just two incompatible people trying to make it work.
Yeah, it's way deeper than that.
It is. We are dissecting a very specific, deeply ingrained mechanism that quite literally hijacks your nervous system. It alters your brain chemistry.
But wait, before we dive into the heavy neuroscience and, start throwing around terms like dopamine and neural pathways, we really need to define our boundaries here.
Absolutely.
Because I can hear listeners right now thinking, wait, is every single person who takes 3 hours to text me back secretly manipulating me?
Right, the paranoia sets in.
Exactly. We have to distinguish between everyday human flaws and this dangerous psychological loop. I mean, if someone gets scared and backs off, does that automatically mean I'm being psychologically trained?
Not at all. And that is a really vital distinction to make. Not all hot and cold behavior is calculated manipulation.
Okay, phew.
Right? Humans are incredibly messy. Sometimes erratic behavior stems from very normal, albeit unhealed, psychological places.
Like what?
Well, for instance, it frequently stems from a genuine fear of intimacy. This is often tied to what psychologists call an insecure attachment style.
Okay, yeah, I've heard of attachment styles, but how does that actually play out in this specific context?
Well,
What makes it different from the push-pull loop?
with an insecure attachment, particularly avoidant attachment, a person legitimately wants connection. But their nervous system views profound closeness as a threat.
So it's like a short circuit.
Exactly. So they get close to you, they feel that intimacy, and their internal alarm bells just ring. And they panic.
They pull away to just regulate their own anxiety.
Yes, or it could just be emotional immaturity. They might not have the psychological tool, the communication skills to handle a consistent connection. So they retreat when overwhelmed.
So they retreat to protect themselves, not to hurt you.
Hmm.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
I like to think about everyday human flaws and, the fear of intimacy like a genuinely faulty light switch in an old house.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
Right. Like sometimes it flickers, sometimes it doesn't turn on right away because the wiring is just a bit frayed. It's annoying. It might leave you in the dark for a minute, but it's not malicious. It's just broken.
Exactly. The intent and the pattern are what differentiate it. The line is crossed into a dangerous push-pull loop when the dynamic becomes systemic. and on some level, responsive to your pain.
Wait, responsive to your pain.
Yes, it becomes a loop when the other person sees how hooked you are. They see you chasing them harder every single time they pull away.
Oh, wow.
They recognize the profound anxiety they're causing you, and instead of communicating or resolving it, they just continue to repeat the exact same pattern.
That's messed up.
What's fascinating here is how quickly your nervous system stops processing this as a mere mixed signal or a communication error. It starts processing it as a matter of survival.
But how can you actually tell the difference in the moment? Because when you're in the thick of it, your brain just wants to make excuses for them.
You rationalize.
Yeah. You tell yourself, oh, they just had a really busy week at work, or they're stressed about family. If the faulty light switch is the innocent flaw, the push-pull loop feels more like a strobe light to me.
A strobe light. I like that.
Yeah, because a strobe light is intentionally designed and programmed to disorient you, to blind you and make you lose your balance.
Right.
But when the lights are flashing that fast, how do you even recognize you're in a strobe light room?
You recognize it by stepping back and mapping the anatomy of the cycle. Relationship psychologists and trauma bonding resources, they're incredibly consistent on this point.
Okay, what do they say?
They break this cycle down into 4 very distinct, predictable phases. And once you understand the architecture of the loop, the disorientation of the strobe light begins to fade.
Because you can see the pattern.
Because you can predict the next flash.
Okay, let's walk through those 4 phases. Because reading through the source material, seeing this blueprint laid out, was honestly staggering.
It is very revealing.
So phase 1 is the push or the hot phase. And this isn't just a polite first date. This is an intensely positive, overwhelming beginning.
Very overwhelming.
They are moving towards you with this massive wave of affection. It's the constant attention, the deep, vulnerable talks until 3 a.m. where they tell you all their childhood secrets.
The over-the-top compliments.
Yes, and incredible physical intimacy. Feels rare. You feel like you've been truly seen by someone for the very first time in your entire life.
And that intensity is the most critical component of the entire trap. It establishes the baseline of what you believe the relationship actually is.
So you lock onto it.
You completely lock on to that feeling. You tell yourself, this is who they really are. This is our true potential.
And then what?
Well, the stronger that baseline is set, the more devastating phase 2 becomes. Phase 2 is the pull, the cold phase.
Right.
Suddenly, and almost always without any logical warning or triggering event, they withdraw.
Just a complete 180-degree shift.
A total shift. You are met with silence. A text that used to be a paragraph of affection just becomes a one-word answer.
Ugh, the dreaded K.
Exactly. You experience emotional distance, wild mood swings. They might start making vague, nonsensical excuses about why they can't see you, or they just emotionally shut down entirely.
It's like the warmth you experience in phase 1 just evaporates overnight.
Yes, which throws you immediately into phase 3, your reaction.
And this is where the disorientation really kicks in, right?
Absolutely. You feel a massive spike of confusion and anxiety. Your heart rate is up. You start reaching out more. You try harder to be perfect.
You sit there and you just overanalyze every single interaction you had over the last 48 hours.
Agonizing over it.
Yeah, agonizing, like, what did I do wrong? Was I too needy? Did I push too hard? Did I say the wrong thing about their friends?
You take the burden entirely on yourself.
Exactly. You take the burden of their sudden, inexplicable coldness entirely onto your own shoulders. You assume you broke the magical connection.
And this frantic, self-blaming reaction perfectly sets the stage for the final, most manipulative phase. Phase 4. The reward.
The reward.
Just as you are completely exhausted, just as you are finally about to give up, accept the loss, and walk away from the confusion, they return.
Of course they do.
And they don't just return casually, they return with that exact same warmth and intense affection from phase 1.
Wow.
They are loving, attentive, and apologetic again. This creates a massive, overwhelming emotional high and a profound sense of relief in your body.
It's the relief that absolutely hooks you. When I was reading this part of the research, I couldn't help but think of holding your breath underwater.
Oh, that's a very visceral comparison.
Yeah, like imagine you're swimming, right? You're totally fine, but then you're pushed under and you can't get to the surface. You're panicking, you're kicking, your lungs are just burning.
Suffocating.
You're begging for a single breath of air. And when you finally break the surface and take that huge gasp, it feels like the greatest, most euphoric thing in the entire world.
But it's just air.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The air isn't actually special. It's just normal, everyday air.
Yeah.
It only feels euphoric because you were suffocating.
Right.
The reward phase isn't them being an incredible once-in-a-lifetime partner. It's just them finally letting you breathe again.
And because of the deprivation, that normal air feels like a miracle. The relief of no longer suffocating is completely misidentified by your brain as a romantic high.
That is so dark.
This is where all the resources on toxic relationships are entirely unified. This four-step cycle is not random. It is not a quirky accident of a passionate romance.
What is it then?
It mirrors the exact blueprint of how addiction is formed in the human brain.
Okay, I want to pause right here and dig into that.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people hear the word addiction and they think of substances, right?
Meh.
Chemicals, things you ingest.
Usually, yes.
Why does our brain fall for this underwater trick? How does a person become a substance?
It's all about behavioral conditioning.
To understand this, our sources actually take us on a fascinating detour away from purely relationship dynamics and into the realm of hard behavioral psychology.
Yes, and the key to everything we're talking about today revolves around one specific term: intermittent reinforcement.
Intermittent reinforcement.
It's the foundational engine of this entire dynamic. The concept is rooted in classic behavioral psychology, going all the way back to B.F. Skinner.
Oh, right, with the rats in the boxes.
Exactly, his experiments with rats. The basic premise dictates that if a reward, in this case affection, validation, or attention, is consistent and reliable, the human brain eventually normalizes it.
It gets used to it.
It becomes part of your safe baseline reality. It doesn't spike your adrenaline.
Right? Like, if your partner kisses you goodbye every single morning before work, after 5 years, it's lovely. But it's not making your heart pound out of your chest. It's just safe.
Precisely. However, if that reward is unpredictable, meaning it is sometimes there in massive quantities and sometimes violently taken away, the brain does not normalize it.
That's a little crazy.
Instead, the brain becomes completely obsessed with predicting and obtaining that reward. When a rat in a cage presses a lever and gets a food pellet every single time, it only presses the lever when it's hungry.
Makes sense.
But if the rat presses the lever and gets a pellet only sometimes, on a completely randomized schedule, the rat will press that lever frantically, obsessively, ignoring everything else, even to the point of exhaustion.
One of the articles we reviewed was from a counseling organization called My Family Psychologist, had a quote about this that absolutely stopped me in my tracks.
Which quote was that?
It said, "Intermittent reinforcement is the reason abusive relationships are so difficult to leave." That is a massive paradigm shift. It's saying it is not your profound love that makes it hard to leave. It's this specific, randomized behavioral conditioning.
It is arguably the strongest form of psychological conditioning that exists. Therapists often use the analogy of a slot machine to explain intermittent reinforcement in humans, and it translates perfectly.
A slot machine?
Think about the physical and psychological experience of sitting at a slot machine in a casino. You pull the lever, and you get nothing.
You lose your money.
You pull it again, nothing.
Yeah.
You are actively losing your money, your time, your energy. You are objectively in a losing situation.
Yeah.
But then, right when you are frustrated enough to walk away, the bells ring, the bright lights flash, and you get a payout.
And suddenly you're hooked again.
That occasional, entirely unpredictable win is all it takes to keep a person sitting at that stool, pulling the lever, sometimes until they have lost their entire life savings.
So if we bring that back to the push-pull relationship,
Yeah.
the win is that sudden apology. Or it's that one amazing Sunday you spent together where everything felt perfect and they looked at you like they did on the first date. Or it's just the sudden loving text message after 3 agonizing days of being left on read.
Exactly.
And the loss is the gaslighting, the coldness, the silent treatment, the emotional neglect. You just keep pulling the lever, enduring all those losses, just hoping for that Sunday version of them to come back out.
Because the unpredictability itself is the hook. If a slot machine never paid out at all, you would walk away after 3 pulls and never play again.
Obviously.
If a partner was entirely cruel and distant 100% of the time, you would leave. The human brain protects itself from consistent pain. But because you occasionally get the jackpot, your brain overrides your logic. You endure the abuse for the potential of the win.
Okay, I have to challenge this a little bit
Yeah.
because it feels almost too mechanical. You know, what does this all mean for you, the listener, who is sitting there feeling very real, very complex human emotions right now? Are we literally saying that your highly evolved, complex human brain with all its capacity for art and philosophy and nuance
Mm-hmm.
It literally cannot tell the difference between a romantic partner you deeply care about and a brightly lit casino game.
Behaviorally speaking, when it comes to survival and reward mechanisms, yes.
Wow.
That is exactly what we were saying. The same ancient neurological pathways are being activated and hijacked. Your brain, at its core, is a pattern recognition machine designed to keep you alive.
Right, it wants to survive.
When it encounters an unpredictable reward system tied to something you value, like attachment and connection, it shifts into a highly focused, almost obsessive state. It's trying to figure out the pattern.
So the smart part of your brain gets turned off.
Well, your prefrontal cortex might know it's a relationship, but your primitive brain just sees a randomized reward schedule.
Which brings us perfectly into the neurobiology of all this. We've looked at it from the outside in. The behavioral slot machine, the rats pulling levers.
Yes, external behavior.
Now, let's zoom in and look at this from the inside out. What is chemically happening in your head when you are pulling that relationship lever? Our sources break this down into three major neurobiological pillars. Let's look at the first one, which is everyone's favorite buzzword, dopamine.
Yes, dopamine is heavily discussed, but it's often misunderstood simply as the pleasure chemical.
It's not just pleasure.
No, it is much more accurately described as the neurotransmitter linked to reward, motivation, and anticipation. It is the chemical that historically drove hunter-gatherers to seek out food and shelter.
Okay, so it drives action.
It drives you to seek out things you need to survive. When your partner comes back loving after a period of intense coldness, you feel a surge of relief. And your brain releases a massive spike of dopamine.
Because your brain thinks, I secured the attachment, I survived.
Exactly. And because this reward is entirely unpredictable, the dopamine system becomes hyper-reactive.
It just goes into overdrive.
Research shows that dopamine spikes highest not when a reward is received, but when a reward is anticipated but uncertain.
Wait, anticipation is stronger than the reward itself.
Yes. It's the exact same neurochemical reaction seen in gambling addicts or individuals with substance use disorders. Your brain is getting a massive, intoxicating chemical payoff every single time they return from a cold phase.
That makes so much sense, because it explains that literal physical rush you get when their name finally pops up on your phone after 2 days of silence. Your heart just jumps.
That's the dopamine.
But that's just the high. The second pillar explores what happens during the lows, which our sources label as anxiety and craving.
The inevitable crash.
Right. During the pull or cold phase, your anxiety skyrockets, and we've all been there. You are checking your phone every 2 minutes. You are replaying old voice memos just to hear their tone of voice.
It's agonizing.
And the research points out that comparing this to literal drug withdrawal is not an exaggeration. The craving patterns, the physical ache in your chest, the inability to focus on your work, the restless leg, they are neurologically identical to craving a substance.
It is a state of deep systemic physiological distress. Your nervous system is screaming at you that something is terribly wrong, that your primary attachment is severed.
It feels like life or death.
And because of the conditioning we just talked about, your brain believes the only way to fix that distress, the only way to regulate your nervous system, is to get a hit of affection from the exact same person who is causing the distress.
The same person.
Which leads directly into the third neurobiological pillar, trauma bonding.
This is a heavy one. Trauma bonding. This occurs when your attachment system becomes profoundly confused, right? Because the source of the terror is also the source of the rescue.
Precisely. To understand a trauma bond, you have to look at how humans are wired to handle threats. Normally, if something burns, you say you touch a hot stove, you pull your hand away.
Yeah, obviously.
And you seek comfort and a bandage from somewhere else, someone safe. But in a push-pull loop, the fire burning you is also the ice pack soothing you.
The fire is the ice pack. That is wild.
The brain misreads the intense relief of the soothing phase as deep, profound love. Mental health organizations and national domestic abuse helplines often refer to this dynamic as having invisible chains.
Invisible chains.
These bonds feel incredibly strong, unshakable even, but they feel that way not in spite of the push-pull dynamic, but entirely because of it. The cycle of pain and relief is what forges the chain.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. And I have to push back again on behalf of anyone listening who might just be in the honeymoon phase of a new relationship right now.
Okay, go ahead.
Because isn't love supposed to feel exciting? Isn't it supposed to feel like butterflies in your stomach and a racing heart and thinking about them all the time? How do we, practically speaking, separate the normal chemistry and excitement of a new crush from the insidious chemistry of a trauma bond? They both make your heart beat fast.
It is a critical distinction to make because they masquerade as the same thing. Healthy excitement feels like anticipation, joy, and a sense of expanding possibility.
Okay.
It is expansive. Most importantly, it feels fundamentally safe. You might have butterflies because you are excited for a date, but you aren't terrified they're going to ghost you.
You're not scared.
The butterflies of a trauma bond, on the other hand, are actually the physical sensations of anxiety, hypervigilance, and a severely dysregulated nervous system. You aren't excited. You are bracing for impact.
Wow.
Your heart is racing because you are in fight or flight, not because you are in love.
I think of it like a compass. Imagine you are lost in the woods, and you are holding a compass to find your way north. In a healthy relationship, north is true love, trust, consistency, and safety.
That's a helpful visualization.
But a push-pull dynamic is like walking around with a giant, powerful magnet in your pocket. That magnet represents the intermittent reinforcement, the dopamine spikes, the manufactured anxiety.
And what happens to the compass?
That magnet makes the compass needle spin wildly, completely out of control. You look down at the compass, and you see the needle moving with all this intense, frantic energy, and you think, wow, I must be heading north. Look at how strong this magnetic force is. This must be destiny.
But it's not.
No. Your internal guidance system is just being massively distorted by the magnet in your pocket. You aren't heading toward true love. You're just being pulled by a distortion.
The energy and movement of the needle do not indicate the right direction. They only indicate a powerful disturbance.
Exactly.
And the tragedy is that people follow that wildly spinning needle deeper and deeper into the woods. They completely lose their sense of self, convinced that the intensity of the confusion is proof of the depth of the love.
Which brings us to a really dark reality that we have to confront in this deep dive.
Yes, we do.
We've talked about how vulnerable our brains are to this and how it can sometimes happen because of unhealed attachment issues. But we have to look at the sources we found, detailing the fact that there are people out there who understand this science and use it as a literal weapon.
It's true.
We have to talk about conscious manipulation.
Yes. This is where the topic shifts from tragic misunderstandings to intentional emotional abuse. While many people perpetuate push-pull dynamics unconsciously due to their own unresolved trauma, there is an entire subset of individuals who utilize this deliberately.
It's really disturbing.
In our research, we examined documents, forums, and videos associated with dark psychology.
Dark psychology.
These spaces literally teach these psychological tactics as a foolproof way to build obsession, break down boundaries, and control another human being.
It is genuinely terrifying to read through these forums. One specific document on relationship tactics broke it down like a sports playbook.
Very methodical.
Chillingly methodical. They instruct the practitioner to start with a highly exaggerated hot phase. They actually use the term love bombing.
Yes, love bombing.
The instructions are to give intense validation, mirror the target's interests, and make them feel like the center of the universe. And then, once the target is visibly invested, the playbook instructs the manipulator to intentionally initiate the cold phase.
To just pull the rug out.
Withdraw that attention entirely.
And the way they initiate that cold phase is highly calculated. The forums advise manufacturing a minor conflict or finding a microscopic transgression committed by the partner to punish them.
Just making something up.
Or, more insidiously, they suggest withdrawing for absolutely no reason at all, just disappear.
Why?
The stated goal of these manipulators, quoted directly from the sources, is to create confusion, desire, and addiction. So the target will do whatever the practitioner wants.
They are explicitly teaching people how to play emotional hot-cold games to give their partners emotional whiplash.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it is entirely about power dynamics.
Right.
By controlling the push and the pull, the manipulator completely controls your emotional state. They become the arbiter of your reality.
They hold all the cards.
They decide when you get to feel safe, when you get to feel loved, and when you have to feel abandoned and desperate.
And by keeping you in that state of constant whiplash, you become entirely focused on just winning them back. You are so exhausted trying to get back to the hot phase that you don't even have the energy, the time, or the clarity to step back and question the abusive pattern itself.
You're just reacting.
You're just trying to survive the day. But this brings up a huge question for me, and I know listeners are wondering this too. If this is so calculated, if it's a literal playbook,
Right.
why doesn't the victim see the strings being pulled?
It's a common question.
Right, because I know brilliant, successful, rational people who have fallen into these traps. How does a smart person fall for what is essentially a psychological parlor trick?
That is the most common misconception about emotional abuse, that intelligence is a shield against it.
It's not.
It isn't. Intellect has very little to do with core neurological conditioning. We have to look at how the brain processes threat and reward. The prefrontal cortex is the logical, rational part of your brain.
Right, the smart part.
It's the part that does math and recognizes bad patterns, but in a push-pull loop, the prefrontal cortex is being actively overpowered by the amygdala, which is the fear and survival center, and the brain's primitive reward centers.
Wait, so my logic center literally shuts down. How does that actually work mechanically?
It's an evolutionary survival mechanism. When your amygdala perceives a profound threat, like the sudden loss of a primary attachment figure, it triggers a stress response.
Okay.
Blood flow literally shifts away from the prefrontal cortex, the logical center, and redirects toward the primal parts of the brain responsible for immediate survival.
So you physically can't think straight.
When you are starving, your intelligence doesn't stop you from craving food. You can't logic your way out of hunger.
That's so true.
Similarly, when your nervous system is starved of safety, flooded with cortisol, and then periodically spiked with intermittent dopamine, your intelligence doesn't stop you from craving the reward. The manipulator is bypassing your logic entirely and speaking directly to your primal survival systems.
Wow. You can't outsmart biology.
No, you can't.
That perfectly transitions us from the external manipulator to your internal reality as the listener. Let's talk about diagnosing the addiction in your own life. How do you know, right now, today, if you are currently trapped in this exact dynamic?
It's important to look for the signs.
Our sources provided a really clear, undeniable checklist of signs. Let's go through them.
Yes, drawing from multiple counseling articles and relationship psychology literature, the first major sign is the complete lack of a baseline.
A baseline.
Look at your relationship over the last month. You experience amazing, euphoric highs and devastating, crushing lows with almost zero calm in between.
So no middle ground.
There is no steady state. The concept of a peaceful, boring Tuesday evening does not exist in the relationship.
And building on that, the second sign is that after being hurt, the good moments feel intensely euphoric. Again, the drowning analogy.
Yes.
If they apologize for ignoring you for 3 days, that apology feels like the greatest romantic gesture in history, simply because you were in so much agony beforehand.
A third key indicator is constant, exhausting rationalization.
Oh, I've seen this so much.
You find yourself repeatedly saying to yourself or defending them to others with phrases like, "They're not always like this. There are really good times. You just don't see how sweet they can be behind closed doors."
You make excuses.
You continually use the intermittent highs to excuse the consistent systemic abuse.
Then there's the physical aspect, which I think surprises a lot of people. The fourth sign is that attempting to leave, or even just sitting alone thinking about leaving, causes literal physical withdrawal symptoms.
Yes, very real physical symptoms.
We were talking about shaking hands, nausea, intense physical longing, a heavy feeling in your chest, and the complete inability to sleep. Your body's physically reacting to the lack of the dopamine hit. You feel sick.
Fifth, and this is perhaps one of the most profound realizations a person can have, you realize that you spend significantly more time waiting for the good version of them to return than you actually spend experiencing that good version.
That's a gut punch.
If you map it out, the hot phases might only account for 10 or 15% of the relationship. But you spend the other 85% waiting, hoping, and contorting yourself for that 15% to come back.
Which means ultimately you are in love with the potential, not the consistent reality of who is standing in front of you.
Exactly.
And the final sign, which I think is so incredibly common and isolating, is how you react to your support system. Your friends and family look at the relationship, they see you crying all the time, and they say, "You deserve better. This person treats you terribly."
But you don't listen.
But instead of listening, you get intensely defensive. You assume your friends just don't understand the rare connection you share with this person.
The tragedy of defending the relationship to your friends is that it isolates you further, which is, intentionally or not, exactly what a manipulator wants.
It plays right into their hands.
Isolation deepens the trauma bond because you become even more reliant on the manipulator for your reality. You convince yourself that you and your partner share a secret, profound language, a depth of passion that the outside world is too mundane to understand.
When in reality,
the outside world isn't missing a profound love story. They are just looking at a broken slot machine, wondering why you keep putting your life savings into it.
I think about the loving their potential sign a lot. It's like buying a house. Imagine you are house hunting, and a real estate agent shows you this beautiful, glossy architectural rendering of a gorgeous modern home.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
It has huge windows, a beautiful garden, it's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
You fall completely in love with the rendering, so you buy the property sight unseen based on that picture. But when you move in, the actual house is crumbling.
It's a disaster.
The roof leaks every time it rains. There is toxic black mold in the walls. The foundation is literally cracking under your feet. It is actively making you physically sick to live there.
Wow.
But instead of moving out, you tape that glossy architectural rendering to the moldy wall. And you sit in the toxic wreckage every single day, staring at the picture, coughing from the mold, telling yourself, but look at what it could be. Look at how beautiful the rendering is.
That is heartbreaking.
You are living in the toxic reality, but you are offering your devotion to the imaginary potential.
It is a devastating trap. You are clinging to the push phase, the rendering, as the true reality, when the totality of the house, the mold, the cracks, the push, and the pull is the actual reality.
You have to accept the whole thing.
You have to live in the whole house, not just the picture on the wall. And recognizing this brings us to one of the most difficult barriers in this entire discussion, the psychological barrier to leaving.
Right. Because if a listener is hearing this right now, and they are nodding along, checking off every single sign on that list, realizing they live in the moldy house, the natural agonizing question is, if I know all this, if I see the mechanics, why don't I just walk away?
It's the hardest question.
We have to dismantle the immense shame associated with staying in these dynamics, because the shame keeps people trapped just as much as the dopamine does.
The shame is often heavier than the abuse itself. People in these cycles constantly tell themselves, I know it's bad. My friends tell me it's bad, so why can't I let go?
What is wrong with me?
Right. What is wrong with me? Why am I so fundamentally weak? Counseling articles emphasize this point constantly, and it is vital to hear. You are not weak. You are conditioned.
Conditioned.
Willpower alone is rarely enough to beat deeply ingrained neuroassociations and chemical dependencies.
Leaving means you have to grieve. You have to give it the possibility of the next high. When you walk away from the slot machine in the casino, you have to accept the absolute finality that you are never going to hear those bells ring again.
And the brain fights that.
And your brain, starved for dopamine and terrified of the withdrawal, screams at you. But maybe next time it will be different. Maybe they finally learned their lesson.
Yeah.
We had a really good talk last night. We've come this far. I've invested so much time and tears. I can't just walk away right before the jackpot hits.
That word maybe is the strongest hook of all. It is the fuel of intermittent reinforcement.
Maybe.
Victims routinely blame themselves for not leaving, failing to realize they have been systematically psychologically trained to stay. The intermittent reinforcement has rewired their reward circuitry.
It's not a moral failure.
Beating yourself up for not being able to walk away effortlessly is like beating yourself up for feeling hungry when you haven't eaten in a week. It is a biological response to a specific environment of deprivation.
But surely the brain has a breaking point, right? I want to push back on this idea that we are just helpless biological machines. At what point does the pain of the pull, the coldness, the neglect, the anxiety finally outweigh the dopamine hit of the push?
It's a fair question.
When does the slot machine finally run out of tokens? Doesn't the pain eventually wake you up?
The breaking point happens, but usually not organically. Often, it doesn't happen until the psychological toll manifests into a severe physical or mental breakdown, where the body literally gives out,
Jeez.
or the manipulator discards the victim entirely. However, the alternative, and this is what we are aiming for today, is that the breaking point comes through education, awareness, and active intervention.
So you force the breaking point.
When you finally see the mechanics behind the magic trick, the trick loses its power. You aren't helpless, but you do have to consciously fight your biology. That is why understanding the detox protocol is so critical.
Because you can't just wait it out.
You can't just hope to fall out of love. You have to actively rewrite your own neurology.
Let's get into that actionable empowerment. How do you escape the loop? Our sources outlined a comprehensive 5-step recovery process based on trauma and addiction therapy resources. And this is the absolute core of our deep dive today. Step 1, name it.
Naming it is about reclaiming your reality and engaging your logic. You have to stop using romantic language to describe your abuse.
No more soulmate talk.
You must stop calling it a complicated love story, or saying we just have a really passionate, fiery connection, or We're just going through a rough patch.
What do you call it?
You must call it what it is: intermittent reinforcement and trauma bonding. By shifting the narrative from "this is my soulmate" to "this is behavioral conditioning," you force your prefrontal cortex back online.
You bring the logic back.
You bring logic back into the driver's seat and turn down the volume of the amygdala.
Words matter. Step 2 is to track reality, not just the highs. Because, as we established, your brain is evolutionarily designed to remember the dopamine spikes and gloss over the misery to keep you moving forward.
It's trying to protect you.
Right. So you have to outsmart your own memory. Get a journal. Write down how often the good times actually happen. Write down the dates. Detail exactly what they said during the cold phase.
The hard data.
Yes, because you might realize that this mostly good relationship you've been fiercely defending is actually comprised of 3 good days a month and 27 days of anxiety, crying, and confusion. You have to break the illusion of the architectural rendering with hard, undeniable data.
Data is the ultimate antidote to gaslighting, especially when you are gaslighting yourself.
Ooh.
Step 3 is crucial for relapse prevention. Expect withdrawal.
It's not going to be easy.
Leaving a push-pull dynamic will not feel like stepping into a sunny meadow. It will feel like a literal detox. You will experience intense physical and emotional cravings. You will have nights where you want to reach out just to check in, or to demand an apology, or to get that mythical closure.
And your brain will play tricks on you. You will suddenly only remember the good moments. The bad moments will fade into the background, and you'll lie in bed thinking, maybe I overreacted. Maybe I was the problem. If I just text them, we can fix it.
Exactly. You must plan for this before you leave. You cannot rely on willpower at 2 a.m. when you are lonely.
So what do?
Lean heavily on your support system. Block the number, mute the social media, delete the photos. You have to realize that the intense craving you feel in your chest is not proof that they are the one or your twin flame.
It's just chemistry.
It is simply the addiction leaving your body. It is your brain begging for a familiar dopamine hit. Treating it like an addiction recovery is the most successful path.
Which leads us to step 4, and this is a long-term project. Recalibrate your definition of love. You have to actively unlearn the idea that chaos equals chemistry.
This is so hard for people.
If your nervous system is used to riding a terrifying roller coaster every single day, then standing on solid ground is going to feel weird. Real love is consistent. It feels safe. It does not require you to be in agonizing pain just to feel alive.
This raises an important question, and it's one therapists hear constantly from people who are recovering from trauma bonds.
What do they say?
They eventually heal, they enter a healthy, consistent relationship, and they sit in the therapist's office and say, "It feels boring. There's no spark. I don't feel that wild passion I used to feel." Something is missing.
Oh, wow.
It is vital to understand what is actually happening there. What is missing is the addiction, not the love.
That's profound.
What is missing is the anxiety, the hypervigilance, the cortisol spikes, the desperate grasping for validation.
You're confusing peace with boredom. That perfectly sets up the final step, step 5. Seek steady, not flashy.
Yes.
You have to intentionally train your nervous system to appreciate the mundane beauties of a safe connection. Learn to appreciate boring good morning texts that arrive exactly when they say they will. Appreciate predictable replies. Appreciate stable affection that isn't suddenly yanked away just because you asked a simple question or had a minor disagreement.
It is a profound recalibration of the self. You are teaching your body, sometimes for the very first time in your life, that safety is not a threat.
And predictability isn't bad.
And that predictability is not a flaw. You are teaching your nervous system to relax.
If you are listening to this right now, maybe driving in your car or sitting in your kitchen, and you take absolutely nothing else away from this deep dive, please write this down, put it on your mirror, burn it into your brain. Real love does not require you to be in pain to feel alive. You do not have to earn your right to breathe.
A deeply true, profoundly necessary reminder for anyone navigating this.
So let's look at the journey we've taken today. We've unpacked how the push-pull trick completely weaponizes behavioral psychology, mirroring the exact mechanisms of a slot machine through intermittent reinforcement.
We covered a lot of science today.
We really did. We've seen how it hijacks your neuroscience, flooding your brain with massive, unpredictable dopamine surges that disable your logical prefrontal cortex. And we've explored how it manipulates your deepest attachment systems to form trauma bonds based on a relentless cycle of pain and relief.
The overarching realization here is that a manipulator doesn't need physical chains to keep you trapped.
They don't.
They don't have to lock a door or use physical force. They just need to be profoundly nice to you sometimes and profoundly cruel to you sometimes, making absolutely sure you never, ever know which version you are going to get on any given day.
The uncertainty is the trap.
That uncertainty is the cage. And as the psychological resources emphatically emphasize, that isn't passion, it is a loop.
It's a loop. And the moment you see the pattern, the moment you understand the science of the strobe light, you have the power to step out of the room.
You too.
You can stop looking in the mirror and asking, why am I so weak? And start asking the much better, much more empowering question. What part of my nervous system was addicted to this cycle? And what practical steps am I taking today to detox?
It shifts the entire framework of your healing from self-blame to self-liberation.
Exactly. And I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over, something that builds on everything we've uncovered today. Think about the sheer amount of emotional energy, the deep resilience, and the unwavering devotion it takes to survive a push-pull loop for months or even years.
It takes a lot.
Think about how hard you fought, how much grace you offered to someone who hurt you, how much of your soul you poured into trying to fix it. You have been pouring all that incredible, immense strength into a broken slot machine.
Into a machine that will never pay out.
Right. Imagine what will happen when you finally take that exact same capacity for deep, intense love and you offer it to someone who actually gives you the jackpot every single day just by being consistent.